Hello, my name is Tony. You know, just as I was gearing up to do this, I became afflicted with the plague. The one I had thus far avoided for over 2 years. Yes sir, the old Kung Flu. The vengeance of Fu Manchu. Hong Kong Fui's viral kablooey. COVID-19. Yes, pilgrims, it's gotten me in the end. I've tested positive for the fucking thing. Throat feels like I've been drinking a bleach and powdered razor blade cocktail. Violent coughing fits rattle my ribs like a xylophone in a hurricane. I'm getting through boxes of Kleenex at an accelerated rate because my nose is running like a fluorescent neon green tap, madam, so don't go thinking unsavory thoughts, and I can barely speak. What an utter bastard. So as you might imagine, I'm struggling with this recording and just asking that you bear with it. I'll do my best to get it done. Yeah, I know, it's ropey as shit. But unlike Adele, I do feel the show should go on. And at least there ain't no one depending on me for a living. Apart from that girl locked in the basement, that is. Moving on. Walter Hill is a screenwriter and director who first came to prominence for writing the script for Sam Peckinpah's The Getaway in 1972. Before that, he'd turned in screenplays for Hickey and Boggs, a private eye flick featuring Robert Culp and Bill Rohypnol Cosby, and The Thief Who Came to Dinner, a lightweight comedy about a jewel thief starring Ryan O'Neal. The Getaway was a big hit, with Steve McQueen and his future wife Ali McGraw in the leads, and provided Hill with the juice to get his first directing gig with Hard Times. That was a punchy little number set in the years of the Great Depression in the US. It was headlined by two charismatic greats, Charles Bronson and James Coburn, and centered on the fortunes of a bare-knuckle street fighter and his would-be manager. It's a film I really like. One of those lean, sharp, economical crowd pleasers with an abundance of stylistic flair and integrity. Rare thing. In 1978, Hill wrote and directed The Driver and the following year The Warriors, both of which are genre classics with distinct identities and styles all their own, both of which reflect to some degree the decade in which they are set, both of which I saw at the Market Hall Cinema, both of which I recently rewatched back to back, both of which are regarded as bona fide cult items that seemingly have lost none of their power to engage, thrill and entertain, both of which, if you've never had the pleasure of seeing, I would firmly recommend you rectify that situation at your earliest opportunity, and this is why. The Driver is a sleek neo-noir thriller about a getaway driver known as The Driver. It's one of those existentialist films wherein no one has a name, but rather a title relating to what they do or some aspect of their physical appearance. The Driver is played by Ryan O'Neal, not usually your go-to actor for super chilled and steel-nerved criminal parts, I grant you. More your go-to actor for simpering, whiny, wimpy, lightweight romantic comedy parts. He was the male lead in The Abominable Love Story, a film I'll personally never forgive for, well, existing. But let's not be judgmental. He's a lot better than you might imagine, and once you've accepted that he's what you've got here, does rather well with a role that is primarily a super cool exercise in stripped-back minimalism. Okay, ultimately it's a Steve McQueen impression, but it's a surprisingly good one. The Driver boosts cars to use as getaway vehicles following robberies. Criminals contract him to get them free and clear. During one such heist at a casino, the robbers are late leaving the venue with their plunder, and the Driver is seen by witnesses, one of whom is the player, Isabella Gianni. The detective, Bruce Dern, a ruthless, arrogant cop preoccupied with catching the Driver, pressurizes witnesses to identify him, but they all claim the only one to get a good look is the player. The player denies that he's the guy, so he gets to walk. The detective brokers an illegal, off-the-books deal with three inept convenience store heisters, Glasses, Teeth and Fingers. If they pull a bank job employing the Driver as wheelman and then betray him, they get to avoid going down for a 10 stretch in California state. So begins a tough, tense but sleek and stylish game of cat and mouse involving the Driver, the detective and his two colleagues, the player, who the Driver paid not to identify him, Glasses, Teeth, Fingers, and the Connection, the Driver's handler and fence. This includes some breathtaking car chases and sudden bursts of gunplay, set mostly against the garish backdrop of Los Angeles by night. The car chases are quite exemplary, with the bodywork of the vehicles all gleaming high-gloss paint and chrome, reflecting neon as they speed down highways and belt through shadowed alleys, industrial units and rail yards. As befits the time, there is no CGI, just real stunt drivers performing real stunts in real-world environments. There is a standout sequence when the driver's prospective employers question if he's any good. He takes them on a hair-raising ride through an underground parking garage in their pristine Mercedes 250S. By the time he's through, the vehicle is trashed beyond repair, and the passengers suffering enough PTSD to immobilize a battalion of combat-hardened grunts.
Better get new plates if you plan on taking it out again,
the driver advises. The dialogue is smart and hard-boiled, hip without being smug and patronising. O'Neill gives what might be the best performance of his career as a self-contained loner whose main objectives are to continue to exist and survive on his own terms. Even when driving at crazy speeds, he is calm and emotional and entirely clinical. The essence of the character can be traced back to Eastwood's man with no name persona, for of course he doesn't have a name, pursues money, lives in cheap hotel rooms and travels light, no baggage to speak of. Isabella Gianni is ravishingly decorative with that raven-haired ice maiden look of hers, harking back to the noir femme fatales of the 40s and 50s. She doesn't have a lot to say or do, and doesn't say or do it with distinct poise and elegance. Her character is certainly a player, evidenced by a quiet and calculated fading from the scene at the end of the movie when she realises there's no financial gain to be had. Bruce Dern's detective shoulders most of the dialogue, offsetting some of the minimalism. He channels his slightly crazy malcontent image and blurs the lines between good guy and villain in the process. He's a bully and egotist and easily dislikable. He treats everyone, even his own colleagues, with varying degrees of contempt, so you'll generally be hoping he comes unstuck. Cinematography by Philip Lathrop, who did amazing work on John Borman's Point Blank, is slick and vibrant. The score by Michael Small, who had a notable track record with thrillers, having provided the music for Clute, The Parallax View and Marathon Man, is atypically restrained. During the chases, when you usually get a pounding musical accompaniment, there's hardly any background music at all, something you don't notice until you do. Hill's script and direction is muscular and direct, spare and confident. The plot is slight, sure, but the action and characterization carry the film. If you're looking for an undemanding but gripping thrill ride made with panache, style and verve, this certainly fits the bill. Going back to Ryan O'Neill briefly, I liked him in The Driver, and I also liked him in Norman Mailer's much derided and hate-generating Tough Guys Don't Dance in 1987. Apart from me, I don't know of anyone else who likes that film. I thought it was a great histrionic fun fest. Don't know what that says about my taste, if anything. The Warriors, like The Driver, delivers most of its action at night. This time the location is New York, or rather New York in some near-future incarnation. Once again, the plot can be written on the back of a postage stamp and is a straightforward premise, a framework on which to hang the stylized action sequences. Street gangs proliferate and Cyrus, Roger Hill, leader of the Gramercy Riffs, the most powerful of the gangs, holds a midnight summit of all the gang delegates to propose a truce and alliance to control the city as gang members now outnumber the police. This seems to meet with general approval, but Luther, David Patrick Kelly, leader of the Rogues, is a sadistic lunatic with other ideas. He shoots Cyrus and in the ensuing confusion and uproar blames the murders on one of the Warriors, who are a smallish outfit from Coney Island. The rest of the film follows the Warriors' fraught and dangerous journey of 30 miles through the city and back to their home turf, running and fighting all the way. What you get is a gritty, grungy comic book escapade driven by frantic battles with varying gangs and factions, set against the backdrop of a practically lawless and decaying cityscape on the point of collapse. And it's great. It has no well-known faces in the lead roles, no big stars, but that's fine because it's the sort of film that benefits from the relative anonymity of the players, heightening a sense of authenticity in the characters. Michael Beck is Swan, who takes over leadership of the Warriors as they try to get back home. This was the highlight of his film acting career. Next he would appear in the devastatingly horrific musical disaster movie Xanadu with Olivia Newton-John, a film so traumatizing it could turn a fucking Medusa to stone. Despite the Warriors being an exaggerated urban fantasy, the crunching violence and ever-present threat of being chased down or beaten to death ground it effectively and helped make it a powerful piece of fast-moving pulp cinema. The art direction and location work, along with Barry DeVorzon's pumping electronic soundtrack and Andrew Laszlo's gritty cinematography, add great visual and sonic dynamism. Like so many films from Rock Around the Clock to A Clockwork Orange to Quadrophenia, The Warriors was cited as an inspiration and invitation to violence for the young because some isolated incidents cropped up in relation to it. It's all bullshit, but does increase the curiosity quotient and add a hint of infamy to such movies. All I can say is, I watched A Clockwork Orange and never killed anyone with a giant phallic modern art sculpture. I watched Quadrophenia and never battered anyone into intensive care with a deck chair to the face. I watched The Warriors doctors and felt no particular urge to remove anyone's dentistry with a baseball bat. Okay, so I might have felt the urge, but I didn't do it. Not right then anyway. And not as a direct consequence. If I was going to do any of those things, I would anyway, minus the requirement of a movie to give me the idea or inspire my behaviour. People did violent shit long before films came along. I mean, there was the Bible, you know? The Driver was a box office flop whilst The Warriors was a box office hit, which just goes to show once again that if you can tap into the rich vein of youth culture, you can strike gold. Both films draw influence from Western and war movies, with The Warriors being a natural evolution of earlier gang-related outings like The Blackboard Jungle and any number of Roger Corman youth-baiting potboilers of the 50s and 60s. Hill had a clear artistic vision for the type of films he wanted to make and an instinctive capacity to craft them to entertain. He knew you only need a postcard plotline as a supporting skeleton to grow flesh on in the form of propulsive action, and that content is the true meat of the construction. It's what the audience wants to see, to experience. His best films shift along at pace and hold the attention, and he knows this works because he's learned from all the westerns he's ever seen, to the point of self-realization where he once admitted, "Every film I've ever made was a western," and his next film would be one in a more traditional period way, The Long Riders in 1980, which is as close to being a masterpiece as he's ever likely to come. Both The Driver and The Warriors are dark, shadowy urban westerns. The maverick loner in the former is labelled cowboy by Bruce Dern's detective, and not without good reason. He's a petrol-head gunslinger outlaw riding a car instead of a horse, pursued by a self-righteous sheriff of dubious morality. Yeehaw! The Warriors could be any western or war movie with the protagonists adrift in enemy territory, fighting to traverse the perilous terrain and make it back to base. Here the base is not a military HQ or frontier town or fort, but the ramshackle fairground architecture of Coney Island. What these movies also share is a sort of lost cinematic idealism in the way they are motivated and made. They are made for people to watch, to buy into and to enjoy, to be dazzled by the stylings and mythology, to not be patronised and spoon-fed political ideology like idiot children in need of educating. There is a sort of purity here. You won't catch it in many films made these days, if any. So if you want to experience it, get hold of them and watch them. It's worth your while. You'll see. Thanks as always for indulging me. I am grateful that you do, if indeed that's what you've done. Please feel free to like or not, subscribe or comment, as is your will. I've got plans for you. Threat of the month. Meanwhile, I'm off to die in a corner for a bit, and here's a song called High Rise.
Shadow is cast over the park. Man on the bench, that's Mr. Clark. Feeding the ducks, feeding the shark. High rise is tall, up to the sky. Those at the top, they never cry. Those down below, suffer and die. Those in between, wanna get high. Stronger than strong, body and swing, tripping along. Join the elite, their happy throng. Feeling disgust, feeling so wrong. High-rise divides, they look so small. Down on the ground, see how they crawl. Harder to climb,